is advised, but will be completely ignored.
I'm sick of it, doing right, doing wrong. Parents pissed off every time I write a song. Smoke, crack, worship Satan, what the fuck is that? It's something funny, made for you to laugh at.
You're destroying America with your rap.
You're so full of shit, I need to call hazmat. The only way I would ever apologize
I gotta go
if
on
I
record
had
with
my
this,
face
alright?
buried
I
in your
really
sister's
do.
thighs.
Never in 39 years have I ever seen anything like
Okay, I'm sorry
It
for what
shows
it's worth,
the
but the best
fanaticism
part of you was the
of this fan
afterbirth.
base.
If you can't take a fucking joke, then go jump in the river. Na 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 na, and I fucked your sister. If you can't take a fucking joke, then go jump in the river. La 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 la, and I fucked your sister.
If you want to continue to put this narrative out there that Cody finishing the story
What
the fuck, dude?
is
yo, he's
this
talking
big
shit. What the
daunting
fuck
task,
is this? Hey,
and
it's
Cody
talking
has
shit.
all these
Run
mountains to
your
climb
mouth.
and
This
all
is
these
what you're
brass
gonna
rings
get.
to
Screwdriver
climb.
jam in your
And of course, we
fucking
gotta
eye.
thank our
So
official
long.
music
Think
sponsor,
I'm coming
Psych
by.
Ward,
Tell your
for the
sister
continued use
I'll be over by
of
10 with my dick in
funny.
the mouth and my balls on her chin. She's bobbing her head to this fucking beat. Damn, dog, man, your sister's a freak. Hey, baby, you like the Eagles? Wanna hear something?
Wait a minute. There's sound. We're working. We're back. Oh my God. I can't believe it. We're back. Yay. Oh my lordy. Okay, it's been a week, guys. It's been a week. Let me just go on record with that right now. I was all set, ready to go and make this show happen last week. I load everything in. I get everything ready to go. Everything is done. Everything. We're about to go live. I'm about to hit the record button so that we can go live, right? And then all of a sudden, life had other ideas, apparently. I apologize. I wanted this show to go off last week so bad. I did everything in my power to try to make it happen. Unfortunately, Amazon same-day delivery turned out to be Amazon next-day delivery. And then I had to get everything rewired and everything rehooked up. And I mean, it was just a task, man. It was just a task. So what happened last week? Well, like I said, I'm sitting here. I have everything loaded in. Everything's done. Everything's ready to go. And as I was sitting here and I was building the show together, apparently my soundboard decided that it was at that particular moment it wanted to just say, no, I'm not working no more. I'm done. So I immediately jump on Amazon and I order a new one. And Amazon's just like, same day delivery. And I'm just like, hell yes. Sign me up for that. And then same day delivery turned into next day delivery.
If I can be serious for a minute.
I was pissed. Okay. So then I'm like, do I really want to just go on and do a show on Saturday? And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, oh fuck, I can't. Last weekend was crazy busy, right? So Friday is obviously the day that I dedicate to do the show, right? And I knew I knew that if it didn't go on Friday that week, that it wasn't going to go on until this week. And Saturday was super crazy busy, right? I had my sister's wedding, and then immediately following my sister's wedding, I had a funeral I had to go to. A friend of mine's father passed away. And then immediately following that, I had a birthday party that I had to go to. So it's just, I mean, I felt like, I just got taken out by some Goombas. I was done by the time we got home Saturday night. And then I had to work Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and, so on and so forth, right? So when the soundboard didn't show up until Saturday, I'm just like, okay, I guess we're pushing this back a week. And I'm kind of hoping that we can make it work to where, since there's been 3 episodes of the Jinx, that I might be able to fit episodes 1, 2, and 3 into this broadcast. And then I can take next week off and then come back the week after and do episodes 4, 5, and 6. There's apparently only going to be 6 episodes, just like there was with the first Jinx. But we'll see how the show goes to make that happen. So, I mean, the soundboard crashed, right? And then I order a new one. Hang on. And the new one comes, and I had unplugged the old one and, set it off to the side and everything like that. And I'm like, you know what? For shits and giggles, let's try the old one more time. Let me just see if maybe that's all I needed to do, was just turn it off, let the battery die in it, because it does have a battery where you can take the thing on the road and everything like that. We'll plug it back in, and we'll see if it starts working. So sure enough, I do that as I'm setting up this new temporary one that I had ordered, just to get me back up and running in the meantime while I'm waiting to order the upgrade. So I do that. I plug the old one back in, let the battery charge on it for a little bit, and lo and behold, it starts working again. And I'm just like, you son of a bitch. So, hey, I mean, at least we got a backup now in case anything were to ever happen to this one or the new one that I'm about to order. And then, I mean, hey, if that one ever goes down, I got 2 backups. So kudos to that. Uh-oh. Don't tell me this one's... There we go. But yeah, so that's kind of what happened with that. And there's been other things that have been going on in my life too. Things that are just, things that I didn't want to be a part of. And I don't mean that I didn't want to be a part of them because I'm being, it's just things that you hoped would never happen. And not only did they happen, but they happened a day apart from each other. And it's kind of just like, fuck me, man. And, and then it was just one thing after another. So I'm in a rebuilding phase. Mentally. I've had to rebuild myself to kind of get back on track here. And it's going to take a little bit, but as Mike, the situation from Jersey Shore said, after his legal problems and everything like that, the comeback is greater than the setback. So, and that's exactly how I'm going into this, that this comeback from everything that's been going on is going to be greater than the comeback, or than the setback. So, let's start getting into it here. first off, let's just go into this here real quick. If you guys want to leave a message for the show, I'll play the voicemails on the next episode. You can do that by calling the Asylum Hotline at 216-385-7046. And we will put that number back up on the screen in just a little bit. But that hotline is going to be available for every time that we're live. It's also going to be used for guests and a bunch of other stuff as well. But before we get into chapter 7 of the Jinx, which is the Jinx Part 2, Episode 1, I want to let you guys know Keezy Productions is bringing World Beats to an all-new location. I did not expect to hear. I will turn that back up when I need to. But it's bringing to World Beats to an all-new location, the Lair nightclub in Norton, Ohio. And it'll be back May 18th, starting at 7 p.m. $5 at the door. Sam Beverlin, Dan EP, J Flow, Zombie Boy, Air MC, Keaton V, Kamari, and Olympus Mons. This is a lineup of lineups, people. You do not want to miss this. But that goes down May 18th at the Lair nightclub in Norton. And they have a DJ for the evening as well. I will put up a bigger version of this flyer during the break. And let's go with this one, man. This one's going to be a world beater for sure. So when I got word that the Jinx was coming back, and I know we talked about this the last time we were on the air when we were doing Rich and Stupid, the redo and everything. But when I heard that the Jinx was coming back, I sat there and I'm just like, look, because Robert Durst is an idiot, which is why I like to call him Rich and Stupid. Andrew Jarecki had unprecedented access to information and things that nobody else could potentially have ever gotten, except for people that sat there and said, yeah, hey, we'll help out Bobby Boy. We'll help out Bob Durst. So I sat there and I'm just like, okay, this is obviously going to talk about the Susan Berman murder trial. Because Bob was eventually charged with the murder of Susan Berman because of 3 words, or 6 words, actually, I guess I should say, that he said at the end of the original Jinx. And those 6 words were, I killed them all, of course. And that opened a whirlwind of just everybody wanting to get their hands on Bob Durst, not just for the murder of Susan Berman, but also for the disappearance and eventual murder of his first wife, Kathy. And I sat there and I'm just like, okay, this is probably not going to be as revealing as the original Jinx, because there's no way in hell that the prosecutors, and more specifically the defense in this, is going to give Jarecki as much access as he had when he originally did the original Jinx in 2015. Come to find out, I was wrong. And I was wrong in a big way. The first 2 episodes of the Jinx revealed so much, and episode 3 was somewhat revealing, but just not as revealing, in my opinion, as episodes 1 and 2. So, like I said, if we have time, we will get into episode 3. But we're going to focus on episodes 1 and 2 because those are the ones that, to me, were started to be the most damning in this murder trial for Susan Berman. So chapter 8, that should be chapter 7. My apologies on that. Let me fix that real quick. So chapter 7 was actually named after a quote from John Lewin the prosecutor going after him for L.A. in the murder of Susan Berman. Why are you still here? So it starts out with Bob getting arrested in New Orleans the night episode 6 of the Jinx aired. Bob had a gun, $30,000 in cash, and he used a fake ID to check into the hotel. And he admitted this on a recorded call to his lawyer from jail. Prosecutors in New York and Los Angeles were working with the FBI to track Durst's every move. And they were afraid to mention any of this to any of Bob's friends. And that any information that he received would get him to run. Bob's attorney tried getting Jarecki to give them the episodes to view prior to the premiere on HBO. And Jarecki said, I can give you probably episode 1, but that's about it. HBO's not going to let me give up all 6 episodes of this. And so obviously, you know, there were some lawyers and everything like that that were a little miffed. Like, you know, oh, okay, you're going to put this documentary out here, but you're not going to give us access to it so we can see how damning this is going to be to our client. Well, yeah, that's kind of how a documentary works, guys. You don't put the cart before the horse, you know, as that famous saying always goes. But Bob was in Houston watching every episode. And by episode 3, Bob is sitting here saying, I'm good. He's already mentioned New York. He's already mentioned Kathy. He's already mentioned L.A. and Susan. He's already mentioned Galveston and Morris Black. And what could he possibly have in the next few episodes? But not only was Bob watching every episode of the Jinx, Bob was talking about every episode of the Jinx with a reporter from the LA Times. And this reporter would call Bob after every episode. What'd you think? And this guy would write down everything that Bob would tell him. And he would keep notes on this, detailed notes, mind you. And in my opinion, that just shows more of Bob being rich and stupid. I'm going to talk to a reporter after every episode of a documentary that is about me. And the creator of the documentary has said that there is going to be damaging information by the end of this documentary that could potentially get my ass arrested again. But Bob did. He was joking that Kathy's body was also buried underneath a lamppost. He even said this in the phone calls with the reporter. He sat there and he's just like, I don't know what the McCormick family, which is Kathy's maiden name, was expecting to hear, that I buried Kathy by the lamppost. And then even the reporter was just like, there better be some crews out checking every lamppost out by their house. And I'm sitting there saying, like, that was exactly what came into my head. I even paused the episode and said, how many lampposts were there by Bob and Kathy's? So yeah, I mean, in episode 5, at the end of episode 5 of the Jinx Part 1, when the letter was revealed that the handwriting on both the cadaver note and a letter that was written to Susan was a match, Bob flipped out. And I'm going to show you guys the letters here one more time as soon as I can find my thing from here. We go. So on the left is the letter that Bob wrote Susan And then on the right is the anonymous cadaver note that was written to the police. So on top in the little black box is the contents of the letter that went inside the envelope on the right. And then underneath that is the letter that Robert Durst wrote to Susan Berman in March before her murder. So when Bob sees this appear on file, and then the credits roll on episode number 5, the last one before the last episode, Bob freaks. The reporter calls Bob like he always does, and Bob is just like, I don't really have time to talk right now. I'm busy. Bye-bye. Bob's on the run. Bob's like, I got to get the fuck out of here. And so run Bob does. But where does Bob run? You would think that Bob would want to run somewhere where, I don't know, there's no fucking extradition. You would think that Bob wanted to run somewhere where he couldn't be found. But we are talking about Bob Durst here, Mr. Rich and Stupid. So the FBI was tracking Bob, and they lost track of him while he was still in Texas, meaning that his cell phone died or he turned it off. A few days later, Bob called his cell phone to get his voicemail, and the FBI was able to track his location to a hotel in New Orleans because Bob tried to dial into his voicemail and kept putting in the code wrong, so he was on the phone for a while. And I mean, you even hear him go, shit. And then he hangs up. Bob had used a fake ID to sign into the room, and the room was sparse. There wasn't a lot in it. Meanwhile, the FBI agents went to Bob's home in Houston and began searching. The apartment had been scrubbed clean. Investigators questioned the desk clerk, who said that Bob had not been there all week, but that Bob's assistant had been there to clean on Thursday, when she normally only comes on Mondays. But who's Bob's assistant? Well, Bob's assistant is the wife to a man by the name of Chris Lovell. And Chris Lovell was one of the jurors in the Morris Black murder trial. Yes. Bob's assistant is the wife to one of the jurors from the Morris Black trial. Yeah, one of the jurors. The most outspoken juror. The one that actually did a press conference and said that he never thought that Bob did it. They then became best friends after that. And now his wife is working for him. And now they're in Bob's apartment scrubbing the place clean because Bob's on the run because he's about to be charged with a second murder. Idiot. So on Friday, Chris and his wife returned to Bob's apartment, and they had 2 empty beach bags. And then as they were leaving Bob's apartment, those beach bags were full and very heavy, according to the video surveillance footage that they had from the lobby of the apartment complex. They removed everything but Bob's checkbooks, credit cards, and evidence, and an evidence box filled with pictures of Susan, Kathy, and Bob. And in my opinion, this was left as a big giant to the investigators that were going to be on the way to trying to find Bob. But this isn't all that Bob did. More on that later. But Bob was making a lot of phone calls from his New Orleans jail cell, mostly to friends who all seemed shocked and sympathetic to Bob and what was happening. Bob's second wife, Deborah, also made frequent visits, giving Bob advice and legal suggestions. Meanwhile, Episode 6 of the Jinx is getting ready to premiere. And Andrew Jarecki had invited Kathy's family, Susan Berman's friends and family, the investigators from Bob's original murder trial in Galveston, Texas, and Janine Pirro, the former prosecutor that was investigating Bob in the year 2000 in Kathy's disappearance. And they're watching the episode. And then, of course, there's the great scene at the beginning when they show the cadaver note and the letter that Bob wrote Susan to Janine Pirro. And she goes, it's a complete match. Son of a bitch. And you just hear everybody in the room just start laughing and having a great, a great laugh at that expense. And then the episode's just going on. And then it finally gets to the part where Andrew was questioning Bob about the handwriting. And then Bob going into the bathroom, not realizing that his microphone is still on. And you begin to wonder what their reaction is going to be when Bob utters the words, "Killed them all, of course." And then you see, I'm getting goosebumps again, just remembering what happened in this scene. You see Kathy's brother and sister-in-law and their children just sitting there, like, looking at each other like he did not seriously just say that. Was he seriously that stupid? Did he seriously just say what we think he said? And then, like, everybody in the room starts asking Janine Pirro and the detective from Galveston, was that a confession? And both of them were pretty much just like, he wasn't being interviewed. He wasn't being interrogated. They can use this. They most certainly can use this against Bob. And that's exactly what happened. But the reactions in the room were exactly what everyone would expect in that situation. The person that you have expected and suspected of murdering 3 people just confessed to doing just that, murdering 3 people. Their reaction was complete and utter shock. For years, the person everyone in that room knew was responsible for the deaths of those 3 individuals had finally confessed to doing it. The only thing that made that moment suck was that while the world learned just how rich and stupid Bob Durst was, Bob didn't, and was sitting in a jail cell. The first episode of The Jinx that he missed. So how did John Lewin get turned on to all of this information about Bob? Well, it turns out they did not ask Andrew Jarecki if they could use the Jinx. Andrew Jarecki gave them that information willingly. He said, here is the complete uncut audio from the Jinx. Here is the complete uncut audio from my commentary with Bob from All Good Things. Here is the handwriting analysis we had done on the letter that Bob wrote Susan and the cadaver note, plus other samples of Bob's handwriting to prove that he is the one that wrote the cadaver note. Here's all of that. And prosecutors went, Here we go. We got this motherfucker right where we want him now. Let's get him. So they start questioning Bob. It's not just John Lewin and his prosecutor team, but it's also the FBI. And they start questioning Bob in New Orleans. And Bob gets very coy with them while they're questioning him in New Orleans before extraditing him to L.A. You want me to, this is a quote from Bob, you want me to tell you what happened to Kathy and Susan. If you want me to do that, then I want something too. And even after the investigators agree to Bob's terms, say, sure, whatever you want, Bob, you tell us what happened to Kathy and Susan and we'll talk. We'll get you all fixed up. Bob then decided he wanted to lawyer up. He's like, if you want this information, you got to talk to my attorney first. But Bob didn't have an attorney at this moment. So Bob made a phone call to the one person that he knew would be able to help him out. The same person that got him acquitted of murder in Galveston, Texas, Dick DeGuerin. I apologize. And joining the team is a high-profile celebrity attorney who has gotten a lot of clients off. Clients like Paris Hilton, Suge Knight. Do I need to go any further after that name? And much of this to the delight of Bob's wife. Now, John Lewin is the prosecutor from L.A., and he's considered the king of the cold case. He likes cases where there's very little evidence or no body or, things like that. So this case with Bob is right up this guy's wheelhouse, right? So you would expect this guy to have already had all of his ducks in a row before they even go to trial. Now, obviously, this is just the first episode of this new season of the Jinx, so we don't know all the cards that Lewin has up his sleeve just yet. But he received the evidence from Jarecki that he had obtained while filming the Jinx, and they went to town getting Bob. And according to Lewin, there are issues with getting Bob prosecuted in New York for Kathy's disappearance. And that's all he says. There's issues. I don't know if those issues have anything to do with the Durst family being involved in this, or if it's just the time that is now passed since Kathy disappeared in 1982. But either way, there's static, as we'll put it. The most that I knew about that was that Bob's story never changed, and that the Durst family refused to work with prosecutors. But we also knew that, Kathy's family had been kind of like pushing and saying, talk to Susan Berman. And that's when Susan Berman ended up with a bullet in the back of her head. The lake house had been searched, turning up nothing. However, when Bob had returned to the lake house several times after moving, and Bob realized that his calls were being monitored by Lewin, who admitted to listening to every call that Bob had made, and the visitor visits were being videotaped, and Lewin was watching those as well. Bob had even gone as far as to telling some of the people that he was talking to on the phone that they could expect a phone call from Lewin. And he started telling everybody, don't tell him shit. So that's pretty much all that happened in episode 1. But this plays to how Bob has always acted. When the Durst organization found out Kathy was sneaking documents to senators and others in positions of power in a way to try to strong-arm Bob to get a divorce, and even her behavior after the abuse started had started to change and everything like that as well. The catalyst most feel for Bob to kill her was the fact that he started abusing her, and the fact that she was stealing documents from the Durst family showing where a lot of their fame and fortune was coming from, and giving it to senators, the mayor, and things like that to try to discredit the Durst organization. Prosecutors in New York investigating Kathy in 2000 wanted to reach out to Susan Berman. Whatever Morris Black did, Bob had the same reaction. Run. Even his pathetic attempt at a plea deal was meant with scrutiny. Jarecki again has unparalleled, unlimited access. And I bet even Bob will talk to him again. Now, I don't know about that. I don't know how much time in between the trial, COVID, the trial part 2, and Bob's death this is going to go into. I mean, we're only 3 episodes in. We got 3 more to go. But all of this just leads to the same pattern that we've seen from Bob over all these decades. Kill, run, deny, kill, run, deny. Some key takeaways from this episode. The FBI knew where Bob was at all times. They also knew that he was money structuring. So what do I mean by that? Every day while Bob was in Houston, while the Jinx was airing, he would withdraw $9,000+ a day. And he would stop before he gets to the $10,000 mark, because if you take out $10,000 or more every day, when you have a very large account like Bob does, that is an automatic red flag, and you start getting the FBI and other people calling you, wondering what the hell you're doing, because that's called money structuring. But because Bob was leaving the amounts under $10,000, it didn't automatically get flagged for money structuring, but the FBI kind of was just like, this dude's getting ready to run. Or at least he's nesting this money in case he needs to run. He would withdraw $9,000 a day, and he ran with $80,000 total. A gun and a latex mask and a map of Cuba. So Bob had this crazy mask that he was going to put on, and he was going to run to Cuba because obviously there's no extradition from the United States to Cuba. So that was a pretty big takeaway for me on this as well. That, Bob did have a plan to run, depending on what was going to be said in these last few episodes of The Jinx. But the most what the fuck moment for me came from this episode was the reappearance of Chris Lovell, the juror from the Morris Black case, who not only acquitted Bob but befriended him. In a strange Vince McMahon kind of way, Bob hires Chris's wife as his assistant, and they clear out his apartment after Bob ran after episode 5 of The Jinx. I'm wondering if we will ever see in these next episodes if Lewin will reach out to the Lovells, or the Lowells, actually, I think is what their name is, and be like, why'd you clean out Bob's apartment? Where's his computer? Where's all the things that we knew he had in this apartment, because we see you leaving the building with it? But not only that, this actually, and you actually see the judge in the Galveston case in this episode too. And he kind of wonders, could there have been something going on that maybe they couldn't see? Now, obviously, Bob ran when he was on trial for Morris Black too. He ran to Pennsylvania stole a sandwich, and got arrested there too. And they agreed to drop those charges because Bob is facing a murder charge in Galveston. What holds more water? Stealing a sandwich or murder? But again, this all falls into that same pattern with Bob, right? We all see this. But it always made me question, could there have been some kind of jury tampering? And even, like I said, even the judge questioned this. You know, could Bob have had Lowell in his pocket before the trial even started? Or maybe during the trial? Did Bob sit there and look at the jury and be like, gee, I wonder which one I could buy? I wonder which one would become my best friend when all this ended. I wonder which one would be willing to clean my apartment out for me and hide all the evidence that's there so that I can run again and try to get away with 2 other murders that I committed before killing Morris Black. But the Vegas-based celebrity lawyer David Chesnoff has worked with Suge Knight, Mike Tyson, Paris Hilton, and a slew of others. The kind of lawyer probably, a guy like Durst and DeGuerin would go after. There are aspects to everything that Bob does that makes him super intelligent, but stupid at the same time. The Durst Trust will not help Bob here. During a visit his wife, Deborah, had with him, she discusses selling property to pay for DeGuerin and Chesnoff. I follow the trial closely, but there may be information in these next episodes of the Jinx that was not shown in any of the stories that I read. But still, already in this first episode, the revelation of Bob befriending a juror from Galveston, the reveal of his confession, and the FBI having their nose so far up Bob Durst's ass is enough for me to have wanted more. And that's exactly what we get. We get more. We get more in episode 2. We get more in episode 3. But my last thoughts here on episode 1. You get the idea that even before the Jinx aired, even before Andrew Jarecki, a filmmaker, gives Lewin the information that he uses to be able to arrest Bob, that he already had a really good idea of what he needed and how he was going to get it to get Bob in the first place. Lewin had been doing his homework on this. And I don't think that the Jinx had any bearing on the fact that he was going to go after Bob. I think in the long run it ended up helping because that's how they ended up getting a confession from Bob. But I do think that they had enough even before Bob uttered those 5 idiotic words on HBO to be able to prosecute Bob. Because by that point, a lot of people in Bob's life and Susan's life and Kathy's life has started turning their back on Bob. Why protect Bob anymore? It turns out Bob isn't as good a person as we thought. And some of that starts coming out in episode 2. And we'll get to that when we come back from break here on Money's Crazy Mind. And when we come back, I do want to get into our sponsors and everything too, because I just realized I didn't mention them at the beginning of the show. But we will get to them when we get back from break here. And this week, I saw a friend of mine, the singer from Four Loko, start posting some of his favorite memories from one of his other bands that he used to be in. And it got me thinking, I haven't played those guys in a while. Here's Bones of Giants.
Oh wow, that sounds really great. Wow, that sounds like a really good deal.
Who are you talking to?
The Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters.
Hello, Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters. What are you wearing?
Khakis?
Well, that sounds hideous.
Well, they're Ghostbusters.
Alright, so remember when I said I gotta remember to turn the music back up? Yeah, guess what I forgot to fucking do. Anyway, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into part 2 of Rich and Stupid Part 2. And like I said earlier, World Beats 3 is coming at you May 18th, 2024. From the Lair Nightclub in Norton, Ohio. Let's bring a bigger one of these bad mammy jammies up here so that you guys get the full view of everything that we're talking about here. Chicaba. I know I promised that we would do it during the break, but yeah, May 18th, $3 at the door. Is that 3 or 5? I'm gonna have to ask Lisa, but I think it's hold please. Let me bring this up here real quick. It's been 3 in the past, so I want to say it's probably going to be 3 now, but see if I can full screen this. $5 at the door. Lair Nightclub in Norton, Ohio, 4951 Worcester Road in West Norton, Ohio, actually. But we got Sam Beverlin, Dan EP, J Flow, Zombie Boy, Air MC, King V, Camry, and Olympus Mons. And also DJ... I don't know what that is. DJ Amin Ra, maybe? I don't understand the symbols. But I think it's DJ Amin Ra from what I'm seeing there. So we'll go with that. But yeah, so don't miss World Beats 3 in their new location, the Lair Nightclub in Norton, Ohio. And real, obviously KZ Productions, we got to thank them. They've been wonderful to the show over the past few months and everything like that. So thank you, obviously, always to Lisa and Jessica at the team at KZ Productions. We want to welcome the 216 Sports Network into the KZ Production family as well. Romel and the team over there, they do the best news, sports news around. And obviously, Psych Ward, we got to thank them for all the music that they do for the show. Growing Wings Adult Services, Lisa and the team over there are phenomenal. Loved working with those guys when I worked with them. And we'll continue to work with them as they need. Sorry, I changed the way the mic setup was just because the arm was driving me a little crazy with some of the things that it was doing during the first half of the show. The things you can get done in a 5-minute break, right? But here we go. Episode 2 of the Jinx Part 2. And this is why I don't use this stand, because it makes lots of noise. But anyway, episode 2 of the Jinx Part 2, Chapter 8, Friendships Die Hard, was just as revealing as episode 1. We talked about it. Bob's an idiot. We know this. Bob is most definitely not one of the sharpest tools in any shed. But Bob obviously has a lot of people that he can have under his belt and mold into a friend that Bob would want. And Bob has done that repeatedly throughout his life. And in this second episode, you learn just who some of those people are that Bob has influenced and manipulated throughout his life. And just how far and to what lengths those people are willing to do for Bob. So if episode 2 showed us anything, a lot of people owe their success to Bob Durst. And they show it through loyalty, fear, and undying love and infatuation. Episode 2 starts by us being introduced to what Lewin likes to refer to as the Wonder Twins, Michael and David Belcher, the handpicked lawyers by John Lewin to help investigate Bob. They were looking into Bob's past and his friends, listening to his jailhouse phone calls. Lewin and the twins decided that they were going to focus on 3 people initially. Doug Oliver, a wannabe Bob. He wanted to buy a tenement building and Bob paid for it, letting Doug run it. Later on, when Bob decided to sell it, he split the money 50-50 with Doug. Nick Chavin, a crass, lewd country singer with a hit single called Come on the Pillow, which they did have no problems playing on the episode. And another longtime love interest of Bob's, named, ironically, Susan Giordano, who Bob's wife, Debbie, is none too fond of. The first person that Lewin focused on was Doug Oliver. Oliver was, in my opinion, looking for a free vacation to L.A. When Lewin called him, he tried playing off that he definitely had something to share. But it quickly shifted to, if he agreed to come to talk, is the county of Los Angeles paying, or the state of California, paying for my trip? This says 2 things about Doug, to me. He thinks his status makes him way more important than he really is, and that it is only worth the effort if someone else is responsible for the financial coverage of it. And 2, that he's either insanely cheap or broke. When Lewin does affirm that yes, LA would in fact pay for his travel, Doug sits there and says, okay, great. Well, I got the personal jet on standby. It's fueled up. It's ready to go. And Lewin's like, no personal jet, man. You're going to have to fly United or American Airlines or, you're flying coach here, buddy. We ain't paying for no personal jet. Oliver kindly declined after that. And Lewin even said, then we're just going to subpoena you. And he goes, well, I'm not flying commercial. You know, you'll have to find some other way of getting me to California if you subpoena me. And basically told him to fuck off. So he's probably not broke, but he's definitely a cheap, arrogant prick. And at one point, Oliver goes to visit Bob in jail. And instead of discussing Lewin, they talk about a trip to Monterey. Or multiple trips to Monterey that they've had in the past. Oliver states that he does still go, but I'm guessing that these trips were probably funded by Bob. By the next thing that Oliver says. That he does not go as often anymore. Mainly because Bob isn't there. Says to me, Bob was paying. And that the trips were less fun without Bob. The attention then shifts to another one of Durst's friendships. A special one. And this one is courtesy of Susan Berman. And that's Nick Chinga Chavin, which Chinga basically means go fuck yourself. And he was a country musician with the flair for the extreme. He used a lot of sexual innuendo and live performances leaning towards the pornographic to set himself apart in the scene. Susan was an entertainment reporter at that time, and she covered a lot of Chavin's concerts and became a fan. She introduced Chavin to Bob, and when music stopped paying the bills for Chavin, Bob got Nick Chavin a job in commercial real estate advertising. And gave him a multi-million-dollar contract courtesy of the Durst organization when they bought one of their newer buildings on the Avenue of the Americans. Or Americas, I should say. And this secured him financially for life. Two people forever connected to Bob because they became insanely wealthy because of Bob. Susan Berman falls into this category as well. After Kathy's disappearance, Chavin had a conversation with Berman about the situation, and she said something very, very interesting. Kathy's dead. Bob isn't. We have to be here for Bob. How do you know that Kathy's dead? At that point, they hadn't proven that anything had happened to Kathy. She had still only been a disappearance. Possibly a runaway bride. Trying to get away from her abusive husband. She was having an affair with a doctor. A doctor that went to her medical school with her. So, how did Susan know that Kathy was dead unless Susan had a hand in Kathy's disappearance? These are all things that once you start to mesh the pieces together, you start to be able to put together exactly what happened in all three of these murders and why the two people after Kathy are dead. At least in my opinion on this. And I'm guessing that John Lewin feels the same way. What does Susan know that we don't? At the time this conversation happened, like I said, Kathy was still just listed as missing. This is not the first time in the episode where strange like that happened. I mean, it's just hold on. Did I just hear what I thought I heard? There are several of those in this episode alone. Okay? And the others are from the mouth of Nick Chavin. At this point, they go to break away from discussing Chavin to talk about Susie 2.0, is what I like to call her, who worked for Chavin and became Bob's assistant slash girlfriend slash mistress slash surprise she's still alive. We'll circle back to Susie 2.0. After spending a lot of time dodging Lewin's calls, Chavin's boss walked into his office at the advertising firm and said, "Yo, this dude, John Lewin from Los Angeles, is a prosecutor. He keeps calling. Call his ass back because I'm tired of this shit, man. Call the dude back." So Chavin does. He tells Lewin that he does not want to be involved in the trial. Lewin starts to question him if Bob killed Susan Berman. And he says no. He doesn't say no or I don't think he would. He says, "I'm not talking about that." And hangs up. And at this point, I'm thinking Chavin is going to do another Doc Oliver and say, where he was going to, clam up and say nothing, protecting Bob to the bitter end. Like I said earlier, Nick provides a few more "did I just hear that" moments. The second "did I just hear what I thought I heard" moment comes after talking with Chavin's wife, who hates Bob and hates Debbie even more, and wanted nothing to do with that part of Nick's friendships. She also didn't like Chinga Chavin either. So there's that. Chavin makes the statement, "When one friend kills another friend, who are you supposed to be loyal to?" Again, Mr. Chavin. Can you repeat what you just said, please? When one friend kills another friend, who are you supposed to be loyal to? There, for the first time, is someone other than Bob saying Bob killed Susan. Chavin's wife also shared a time when he admitted to her that he knew Bob killed Susan. Chavin admits to this and decides it's time to honor Susan instead of Bob, and agrees to talk to Lewin and the prosecutors. This moment for me, where you have Chavin admitting that not only did Bob kill Susan, but that his wife knew Bob killed Susan, and that he'd been holding on to the information that Bob killed Susan since whenever Bob decided, "I'm going to be dumb enough to tell Nick that I killed Susan, and because I did all these great things for Nick, Nick's not going to sit there and rat me out to law enforcement." It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder what kind of dirt Bob has on these people to make them so fucking loyal. On top of the fact that because of their affiliation with Bob, they are uber successful and financially set, right? No amount of money in the world, if I got law enforcement knocking on my door No amount of money in the world could keep me from going, yeah, no, he did it. Because for me, and this is a lot of things that I think people are you're gonna start hearing people say throughout the next few episodes of the Jinx. A lot of people are afraid of Bob. That they're afraid that if they said something, that they're gonna come out in the exact same situation as Kathy, in the exact same situation as Susan, in the exact same situation as Morris Black. Dead. And in Kathy's case, never to be seen or heard from again. That's a lot of loyalty. Fear can buy a lot of loyalty. But let's circle back to the third person that Lewin and the prosecutors are focusing on. Susan Giordano. And she started out as Chavin's co-worker who wanted to meet his rich friends because she can make his rich friends feel very, very good. Sounds to me like she likes sucking dick for money. Chavin eventually introduced her to Bob, and she becomes Bob's assistant and mistress, and then all the other things. And I'm surprised she's not dead like Kathy and Susan. And jailhouse conversations between her and Bob got kind of interesting. Bob's sitting there telling her, here's $300,000. Go ahead and start getting our love nest ready. For when I get out. For when I get away with a second murder. The amount of blind infatuation that she has with Bob. She just lustfully agrees. Oh my God, Bob, are you serious? And then Bob, again, with the manipulation. Oh my God, I should have married you so long ago. Susie, go get the love nest ready and we'll go and we'll be together as soon as I get out. Excuse me. And I'm guessing that this has been an issue between Bob and Debbie in the past, because the second Bob says, hey, listen, we need to take care of Susie to Debbie, she's like, do not mention that bitch to me at all. We are not talking about Susie. Save that for somebody else. Okay, sorry. She went ballistic, telling Bob, do not mention this woman. It's still unknown at this point if Susie will cooperate or not. But Lewin does eventually talk to Susie. And not only did Susie have the $300,000 that Bob had Chafin clear up for her for their love nest, she also had another $150,000 that Bob had given her throughout some time since he'd been in jail. But on top of that, Susie was also sent by Bob to his apartment in New York to get a suitcase and some clothes. She opens the suitcase, and inside the suitcase is another $350,000 that Bob had been saving. And of course, Lewin, being a great prosecutor, sits there and says, did you know that this money was in this suitcase when Bob told you to go and get it? And she's like, I knew there was money in it. I didn't know how much. I thought just maybe a couple of grand. a couple of grand. The damn thing was filled 3/4 of the way full with cash. How much clothes did you expect to fit in a suitcase filled with that much greenback? But on top of that, this woman has said that she's been in love with Bob for a very long time, and that she met Debbie back in 1982, which says to me that maybe Bob was having an affair with Debbie along the time that Kathy died. But that also he might have been having an affair with Susie while waiting for the perfect opportunity to kill Kathy. But not only that, but Nick Chavin's wife worked for Debbie. And this was a job that she got because of Bob Durst. Are we sensing a pattern here, ladies and gentlemen? But Debbie is just as psycho as Bob, okay? In the world of commercial real estate, it's obviously a man's world, especially back in the 80s. Debbie is running a commercial real estate company, but she wanted to give the focus to women. So she hired women to work in the business. But she was afraid that if the women weren't taking the proper care of themselves, that the men in the business would not take them seriously. Or that even male clients would not take them seriously. So she kind of ran her company with an iron fist, right? But the other thing that she would do was that she would have each and every single female employee that she had stand up in a line, and she would have them lift up their armpits, and Debbie would come by and sniff their armpits to make sure that they smelled clean. If there was even the slightest, tiniest hint of odor, she would send them home and demand that they shower before they come back. It was during this that we find out just how long Debbie has actually been in Bob's life. And it was the early 80s. But that's also when we find out about Susie 2.0, not Berman. Berman had been there way longer than that. So I'm trying to figure Bob out, right? Like, you can figure out Chavin. Chavin wanted fame. And when fame didn't come to Chavin, Chavin found a new way to make money, and that was in advertising. Susie wanted to meet rich friends and blow them. That's how Susie 2.0 comes into the picture. We still don't know a lot about Debbie. Now, Debbie has talked to Lewin, but I mean, nothing damning. Nothing that could potentially change the game for Lewin's case here. It's more just of this blind infatuation for Bob. And I'm starting to think that Bob flashes so much money in the way of people that people will pretty much do whatever the fuck Bob asks. And that's a scary thought. That Nick knows more than what he's talking about. And what Nick knows is that Bob killed Susan. But I'm also thinking that there's a damn good possibility that Nick might actually know a little bit more about what happened to Kathy than we think too. Because if Bob has had Nick and Doug and Susie 2.0 and Debbie, for this matter, in his life as long as he has. Now, I want to say, because I remember in All Good Things, Bob talking about Doug Oliver, and Doug Oliver was definitely around during the time that he was married to Kathy. And one of the questions that Lewin was trying to get Oliver to answer before Oliver basically told him, fly me my commercial jet, or, fly me my personal jet because I ain't flying commercial, was if Bob ever talked about what happened to Kathy. So obviously Doug Oliver's been in the picture a lot longer than maybe Chavin has, but I don't know. We'll have to see how all this comes together as the episodes go along. Bob was also made aware that Lewin was listening to all of his calls, and he thought, and he basically said, since I know that Lewin's listening, just want to tell John Lewin that his trial is going to be a zoo because of all the people that he's trying to talk to and get to turn on me and everything like that. Now, I do want to go back and preface this one little thing. John Lewin was not the only attorney that Nick Chavin was dodging. Now, Doug Oliver is obviously willing to speak with DeGuerin because I have a feeling DeGuerin is probably willing to spend the money for Doug Oliver to fly his private plane, right? But Nick Chavin, when he says, I want nothing to do with this trial, he pretty much meant it. Because he pretty much told Dick DeGuerin the exact same thing without having to say a word to Dick DeGuerin. DeGuerin set up a meeting to meet with Doug, or with Nick. And Nick blew him off. Completely hiding from him. Never talked to him. And that actually becomes a conversation between Bob and Debbie, where he says, Dick tried to go talk to Nick and Nick wouldn't talk to him. I hope that doesn't mean that he's turning on me. Hold that thought, Bob. Bob at this point still thinks Nick is on his side and is not going to speak with Lewin concerning Susan. The episode concludes with Nick Chavin calling Lewin and saying, I'm ready to tell you everything I know about Bob killing Susan. This episode just goes to prove that money may not buy happiness, but it can definitely buy friendships. At least for a few decades. However, Mr. Rich and Stupid is soon going to learn that friendships die hard. But respecting a friend's dead memory dies harder. I didn't think that it would be possible for Andrew Jarecki to be able to get the kind of access to some of these phone calls and things like that he's been able to get with this second part of the Jinx. I just didn't think it would be possible. But then I guess that I should never question the fact that, hey, I'm a filmmaker. Here's all the evidence you need to convict Bob Durst. Can I have unprecedented access to everything so that I can make a second part of my documentary? Not sitting there saying that was Jarecki's mindset, but it's definitely something that needs to be considered. Now, like I said at the beginning of this episode, episode 3 is not as shockingly revealing as episodes 1 and 2 were. When you get to start seeing the pieces of who not only Bob is trying to have in his corner, but who also Lewin is trying to get to turn on Bob to have in Susan's corner. Because you got to think about it. Susan can't speak for herself. Or so we think. And Lewin needs people that'll be willing to speak on Susan's behalf. I was shocked by some of the what the fuck moments that were in this episode, because those what the fuck moments were also the did I just hear that moments. And yeah, all of them definitely came out of the mouth of Nick Chavin. And Nick Chavin may or may not become the witness of the trial. And the only reason why I say that is because I'm still waiting to see if Nick Chavin has a motive to wanting to turn on Bob or not. And I don't just mean his wife, who hates him. Hates Bob, not Nick. And I don't just mean respecting the memory of Susan. There's a few other things that I think are going to come out in these later episodes about the character of Nick Chavin, to where I don't know if I trust him 100% yet or not. Now, while there wasn't a lot of revealing things in episode 3, there's a lot to dissect from episode 3, because episode 3 not only shows the conclusion of Lewin's case against Bob, like building the case against Bob, it also talks about the preliminary hearings and the beginning of the trial itself. So I'm not going to go a full 2 hours, but we're about 20 minutes away from the top of another hour here. And I think we're going to break it there, right? But think about this, right? 6 pages front and back of information that I pulled out of these first 2 episodes. Obviously, I wasn't expecting on breaking down episode 3 yet. I wanted to do that after episode 4. So I didn't have any notes on episode 3 yet. But I do, like, episode 3 just aired. So I have everything fresh in my mind as to what happened and where I want to go with it. But we're going to save it for when we break down episode 4. So just remember, if there's anything that you guys want to comment about this episode or any episode of Money's Crazy Mind, you can always contact the Asylum Hotline at 216-385-7046. You can leave your voicemails, and I will return, well, I won't return the call, but I will talk about your voicemail on the next episode of the show. So until episode 4 airs, ladies and gentlemen, in 2 weeks, this has been Money's Crazy Mind. And have a week.
Money's Crazy Mind is proud to be the exclusive flagship broadcast of Nameless, Faceless Productions.
That's all, folks.